Leslie and I have known each other since early childhood. We grew up on the same country road in Mississippi.
I think why we're good for the community of Mississippi is because we're a product of this community. We are just two country guys, and we were embedded with what I call the diamonds of good character.
Come, join the family, and help us build the community.
Charles,
What's going on, Leslie?
what's going on, man?
Oh, man, I can't call it. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you too, man.
I'm sure we've already said that, but for the benefit of all of our listeners and watchers, Happy New Year to you all.
Absolutely, I am. You know me, always twinkling around, but I was wrapping up a phone call and was running a little behind. But we are here, and what a week it has been.
No.
Oh,
Did something happen that piqued your interest?
well, a few things, just a few things. It was
Okay, all right.
slow news. It was a slow news week.
Okay, well, let's talk about it. Let's see what we got.
Man, we got so much to talk about. So let's first start with one word, because I think it's a word that has definitely been on every African American person's mind at some point this week. One word, right? And it's a word that oftentimes, we're asked, or we find ourselves in a position where we're trying to explain what this is and what this word means and visually what it looks like, because oftentimes we're having to explain it because people don't necessarily understand what we mean when we use this word. So I want to talk about the word privilege for a minute. Do you mind?
No, go ahead.
All right. So privilege. There are a lot of different types of privileges. I'm going to focus on one for a few minutes today. And let me just say this. I'm going to be, some of you are used to seeing me in a form of politically correct, but today I'm going to be very direct, and I'm going to be very honest and forward with all of my thoughts today, because it's that clear, and I want to make sure you understand my perspective. I'm going to talk about the word privilege, and particularly white privilege, and I'm going to explain what I mean. I have often been asked the question in corporate settings and different settings, what does that mean? Like, can you explain it? Leslie, can you show me what it feels like or what it looks like? I just don't understand. I don't see it. I don't see what you see, and I want to. So if we look at this week, this slow news cycle week, where we had a lot of monumental things happening, we're going to touch on them all today, so bear with us today. But particularly if we look at Wednesday, and we look at Wednesday, January the 6th? Yeah, January the 6th. And then we flip back and look at July of last year. We look at, July of last year, right around George Floyd's death and the protest in D.C. And there was a great picture. I forget which paper it was on, and it had a picture of the protest then, whatever that was you want to call it, because there's several names out there for what happened Wednesday. And I'm going to put the word privilege all over it and say that's what it looks like.
Yeah.
So we'll start there.
I hear you. But instead of focusing on Black Lives Matter versus white thugs, why don't you just put up the picture of Reverend Raphael Warnock praying in the Capitol and being arrested for praying? That is a more stark difference, because it's in the same spot that was invaded.
That's a very good point. Why don't I do that? Let me just flip this around right quick, and I'm gonna do just that, because and I don't want it to get lost in that. I know we're gonna have a lot of comments that's jumping in about this today, but let me get that picture of Reverend Warnock up so we can look at that. And I think we have two pictures of that.
Yeah, we got two pictures. And to set the stage, in 2017, Reverend Raphael Warnock went to the U.S. Capitol to pray in protest of what was happening with healthcare and how many segments of the population were being left behind. And as you can see, there are no more than 5 people right there in that circle praying in the rotunda.
But Charles, that's a protest.
That is. You see it clearly. Members of clergy protest at the U.S. Capitol. Now, fast forward to the next picture so we can see what happened to them.
Absolutely. I can do that. So let's do that. Let's take a look at this picture because I think it paints a stark difference.
In handcuffs, right away.
Now, Charles, that looked rather peaceful to me.
It wasn't a rather peaceful. It speaks.
No. I'm talking about the picture before. The protest.
And it was not rather peaceful. It was peaceful.
No. I don't even think it was even enough energy to call it peaceful. It was more calm than anything.
Well,
peaceful.
It may have been fervent because they were praying for the nation and the soul of the nation. Because why would you want to take health care away from people who desperately need it? This was right in the middle of the attempted repeal of Obamacare, the Affordable Care Act.
Right. So this was in 2017, I believe it was, right?
Yeah. So this is what happened. This is a clear example of why everyone in Black America and everyone who is tuned in and conscious and awake was saying, well, if there had been Black people that tried to storm the Capitol like that, it would be vastly different. And we can see that in stark terms right here. There's only 4 of them, and they were praying, and they got arrested.
Right.
Yet you had thousands that had weapons, explosives. They caused physical harm. They caused the death of a Capitol Police officer, Mr. Sisnick. Tear gas. They had zip ties. What do you have zip ties for, Leslie, unless you plan on taking hostages?
Because you plan on taking hostage. I mean, that's the only reason I could come up with why you have.
And yet there was no super armed presence as there was in Lafayette Square when they cleared out Black Lives Matter. And there was no immediate arrest. In fact, the officers were helping some of the people, helping them walk out the building. Now we can look at where they penetrated into the building and one is caused to think they had some assistance. As a matter of fact, now there are news reports coming out since the last time I talked to you that some of the people who penetrated the building illegally used their credentials as law enforcement to do so. So there's going to have to be a deep investigation into who aided and abetted these people who decided to put our elected officials in harm's way in order to, no other way to put it, attempted coup.
No, I mean, there really isn't. There really isn't. And I'm just making really. There really isn't any other way to put it. And I think that's been the question, right? That's been the question that most Black people have had, or that was what they were thinking. If that would have been a Black person,
Yeah.
we could put any of our names. If that would have been me, scale on a wall, I firmly believe I wouldn't be talking to you today. And so, good point.
Maybe we don't look at it as the question. That is the answer. You want to know what privilege looks like? There you go. In the starkest terms.
So I think let's back up a little bit before we even get into Wednesday, because I know, and guys, get your questions, because audience, this is one where we want you involved. Fill in the comments. This is going to be very interactive because I want to hear your comments of things. But let's back up, because I don't want to overlook how our week started off. We had an amazing Monday and Tuesday, and so I want to start right there about Super Tuesday. First of all, Georgia, you've been on my mind since November 3rd. Georgia came through, and it came through in a major way. So let's start right there. Charles, what are your thoughts? I know we were very active and just doing what we could from afar. I know you were very active in mobilizing a lot of young people. Just what are your thoughts about Tuesday? Did it play out like you thought it would? Was there anything surprise you about Tuesday?
I'm very pleased, to say the least, because it puts the country on a very, very different tack. But I'm always looking forward. And here's what I will tell you: we should celebrate this victory because it's a huge victory, and it puts Georgia on a different trajectory right now. But rest not, because 2022 is coming, and they're already making plans for 2022 to try and get back what they've lost in the midterm elections. And I hate to do that to you. I do it to you every time. You want to celebrate.
Can I get them in first? Can I get them in?
Well, they'll be sworn in due time, but they better get right to work, because in 2022, we got to do it all over again.
Absolutely.
And this is what I see as a practitioner, is that the votes are there. It's a matter of having the will to go and do the groundwork to get them out. And that was done in spades. And of course, Stacey Abrams as the architect, and all the other people who participated on down the line, Black Votes Matter, New Georgia Project, on down the line.
The whole army, because it was an army.
The young people who participated, people who got a chance to see what it means to exercise your franchise, because as it got nip and tuck, you got a chance to see the A come on with a different energy down the stretch. Like I told you, if you're that close and that's what's left, it's ball game.
Yeah,
I can tell you that with certainty, because that's where the votes are. And they did their job in the rural communities and the hamlets, in the faraway places away from Atlanta, to get everybody engaged. And so it was a great, great night. We've had both candidates have accepted, and there's been concessions by Loeffler and Perdue at this point. But don't get complacent. This is the opportunity to learn, grow, and expand, because this is what happens when you are engaged in every cycle.
So I think let's talk about that. In fact, I wouldn't even say rest up. The work is really just beginning, because I think even now more so, we have to continue to educate and continue to build and build an even stronger momentum going into 2022. It's no doubt about it. It's just the beginning of it, because it's a lot of misinformation that's put out there. It's a lot of re-education, and then even for the people that didn't vote on November 3rd, or even in the runoff in Georgia, we've got to mobilize them. So we've got plenty of work to do. And I think if we learn from our past lessons, if we go back to I think it was 2010, right? The midterms of 2010, the first 2 years, President Obama, they had control over the Senate and the House. And in the midterm, what happened? We lost it. And we all know the story. So when you don't keep that momentum, then you don't get anything else majorly done that you wanted to do, because you're blocked at every turn. So we have been known to go to sleep at the wheel after we accomplish something big, but that's not the time to sleep. That's really the time to grind even harder. So Happy New Year to everybody. Iris, Happy New Year to you as well. we're going to dive into this. I mean, we got a lot of comments, Charles. I'm going to hit some of these, but I did want to, before we, delve into this, where we're going to spend a lot of time today, I wanted to make sure that we kicked it off. We backed up a little bit and kicked off what Georgia did, and Georgia did come through. And so,
thank you to all of our supporters who helped get the word out, who helped get voters out, who voted, who did phone calls, door knocks, text messages. All of that stuff counts. So let's get some comments going.
Yeah. All right, here we go. So, all right, fire up your comments, family. Let's talk. I know you got plenty to say, so here we go. We got coming all the way from the East Coast. Lashonda says DC, Maryland, and Virginia had National Guard ready to assist, and the DOD denied the need for help.
So, Shonda, here's where I'm going. Leslie is tiptoeing around the tulips. Here are two things that I'm gonna put on the plate. One of the first votes that needs to happen in the first 100 days is that DC needs to be a state, because you shouldn't have to go through the Department of Defense to have your National Guard ready to go. Boom. That's one. Two, of course, they were ready, but they were not called upon on purpose. You call it what you will, but white protesters are treated differently than black protesters. That's what it is.
On Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, and on Sunday too.
Yes.
Look, it's the facts. And the whole world is saying that. It's the facts. And so not only were they not utilizing, we know, and if it has to go through the DOD, it means it's got to go through the White House. So not only were they not even mobilized, let's get no preparation, wasn't even mobilized. And then if we look at that picture that picture that I forget which magazine had up, if you go back and flash back to Black Lives Matter, not just talking about Black Lives Matter in itself, but just the protests or any protest that they were fearful there was going to be a massive gatherings, they've always had the National Guard already there. Not having to call them to get ready, they were already there and ready and in place. So, good point, Lashonda. That is crazy. Lashonda has another good point we'll put up here too. Charles, I'll let you take that
one. I don't quite understand that one. What do you mean by that? Hid away. Florida. So let's not compare apples and oranges. Florida is a lot different than Georgia. Florida has some things that are baked into the cake that polling wise are hard to get at. And so while Gillum looked like he was going to win in the last 2 or 3 cycles, the only person that looked like they were going to win from the D side and did win was Barack Obama. Everybody else that looked like they were going to win, including Nelson and Gillum, they lost by about 5 points, which is what Biden lost by. So whatever that statistical noise is that's showing in their polling, it is undervaluing the Republican vote. So I wouldn't compare apples and oranges. Georgia is unique in the amount of resources. I mean, that's an 8 to 10 year organizing effort on the ground, actively engaged to register hundreds of thousands of voters and population shifts due to migrating population, whether it be Black, Hispanic, or Asian communities. You've seen a rise around the collar counties of Atlanta proper, and so that's a lot of people concentrated in a small space that makes it possible to pull off what Georgia pulled off. Is it possible in other places? Yes, but it's going to take intensive on the ground efforts, continually pushing, just like in Georgia. That didn't happen overnight. It wasn't a fluke. It wasn't luck. That was the payoff for years and years, almost a decade's worth of work of organizing on the ground, getting it done.
Good point. Great point. Let me go to the next one from Angela at Mike TV. Hey, Angela. Will the president be on a bunker hiding while he presses the button to the nuclear stuff? Conspiracy theory or no? Can he be trusted?
I'm going to break that down into two categories. One, if he presses the button, you're not going to know anything about whether it's conspiracy or not because we all will be dead. Two, can he be trusted? I think he's shown over a 5-year period that you would be foolish to trust him with anything. As I've often told Leslie and other people in my orbit, he is the best spokesperson that the Democratic Party could have ever hoped for, simply because he always goes too far with his rhetoric. And to pretend like you didn't know that this could be the end result with people rushing and taking over the Capitol is a little bit disingenuous, because he has been inciting with his rhetoric and language and escalating since Charlottesville. And if you want to go back further than that, when he came down the escalator and called Mexicans murderers and rapists, it was on from that point. So he has given a license to the type of behavior that we saw. There's a difference between First Amendment protests of something that you think is wrong versus an illegal act based off of a fallacy, a lie, that there was voter fraud. And so I've heard Department of Justice say just today that there may not be any charges of inciting a riot. I think that is short-sighted by a whole lot, because Rudy Giuliani, Ted Cruz, Josh Hawley, and Donald Trump should all be charged as inciting riot. And if you go one step further, Ted Cruz and Josh Hawley stood on the well of the Senate floor and advocated for seditious activity in knowing. Now, here's why I say knowing. It would be one thing if Ted Cruz, as a senator from Texas, was not an educated man. It would be one thing if Josh Hawley, the senator from Missouri, was not an educated man.
Right.
In both of these individuals, you have one who graduated from Harvard, the other who graduated from Yale. Both have extended educational, Ivy League education, and they are opportunists. They made a bet that they could take over the Republican Party as is, fan the flames, and get away with it. There is a cost that comes with throwing the flames of hatred and division. They should both be required to be removed from the United States Senate.
So it's a selfish play. They have selfish, they have ambitions of their own.
Beyond ambition is wanting to better yourself and putting yourself in the right positions. This was unpatriotic, undemocratic, and seditious. You just call it what it is.
Yeah, I don't disagree. I don't disagree, and you couldn't have said it better. These are people that know better.
Yeah, they know better.
They know better. But if you go back and look at, the senator from Missouri. I mean, let's face it, this is the same gentleman that ran for Secretary of State and won, and in his campaign, he ran it on the basis saying he would not seek another office, that he was in it for the long haul, and 1 year in, he runs for Senate. So, I mean, his history tells the story. So it didn't surprise me by what he did. It didn't surprise me that he objected with Pennsylvania and signed on to Pennsylvania's objection so that they could delay and have their 2 hours to object. It didn't surprise me if you look at his history. I live in a great state of Texas. Ted Cruz did not surprise me either. In the words of the late Denny Green, they are who we thought they were. Let's go to the next one. This was going to be my lead-in. Iris, you must be reading my mind, but here we go. Charles, this is all you.
It's too late to implement the 25th Amendment. So put up that picture of Gretchen Whitmer with that shirt on about Betsy DeVos. And I'm going to tell you why it's too late for that.
You got it.
So here you have one of my favorite governors, the governor from the great state of Michigan, that says, "Dear America, sorry about Betsy DeVos. Sincerely, Michigan." What you have is a whole bunch of people who are claiming to all of a sudden have found religion in saying that Donald Trump has gone too far, and they have all submitted resignation with 2 weeks to go before a new president and new vice president come in. So that means they are running from invoking the 25th Amendment, which would require them and Vice President Pence. And it's not enough time to go through all the procedural hurdles. However, I would say by Monday of next week, maybe Tuesday at the latest, he should be impeached by the House of Representatives.
For the second time. And I think he would be the only president to be impeached 2 times. Yeah.
Right.
So I want you to explain this, Charles. I heard some of the pundits talking about it and some of the networks talking about the fact that there may be a possibility that even after because my concern was, how could they get through all of this, including the hearing, with the amount of time that he has left? And so it was brought up that they could even bring him back after he's out of the office into the new Congress, where Democrats have control to do the hearing of impeachment. Could you talk about that a little bit?
All they have to do is start the impeachment. Once it's started, it goes. It takes precedent over everything. But I don't suspect that you need a long hearing for this. I mean, I can't fathom you needing a long hearing for this. All you have to do is play the rally tape from Wednesday, play the actions at the Capitol, and then vote up or down. It is not something that requires a lot of thinking. He incited this. He started this. Now he needs to finish. He needs to be held accountable for it.
Sure. And as far as somebody asked a question about the powers of Congress when we want it under the new Congress, but to my understanding, Reverend Warnock and John Ossoff will start working immediately, right?
Yes.
We have a delay, and they're immediate, right, after the runoff, because everybody else has been sworn in, correct? Okay. So that means Democrats have control now. Okay. All right. Good point. Let me go to the next one. Here we go.
How do we get ready to defend when the enemy is among us? Very good point. Sergeant at Arms has resigned. He should be held accountable.
Yeah.
There are videos out there in the public sphere where you see officers waving those rioters and thugs and looters in. They should be held accountable. Whoever provided the plans to show them how to get to the parliamentarian's office, that is not an easy place to get to.
No, it's not. You and I have both been to the Capitol building before. And you don't just walk in there with no history, no knowledge of where those things are, and you just easily go right to them.
Right.
No.
So they went there with a plan, and a lot of it was not televised on purpose because they did not want to have more people coming in, and they didn't have the right response force present. But you can see people. I think I sent you a picture for the show. You can see the man with the zip ties in his hand. What do you have zip ties for, sir?
Well, you know who he had the zip ties for.
Right. And then how do you get to Nancy Pelosi's office?
Right. We know that one. It's not easy to find.
Yeah. So all of them should be held accountable. And they will be. But isn't it funny that it's after the fact that they're held accountable instead of immediately?
Right.
And so this is the other reason why I say DC should be a state, because if DC were a state, you wouldn't have to wait on a federal response to get you help from the neighbors, from Maryland and Virginia, or from DOD to get you military help. DC needs statehood at this point for these type of reasons and more. It should have already happened. The reason it hadn't happened is because DC will produce 2 black senators, which will tip the balance of the Senate for a very, very long time. Let's just be real about it.
There you go.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, Lashonda. So the Georgia senators are scheduled to be sworn in tomorrow.
And how about that? From arrested to United States senator in 3 years.
You know, let me give a couple more. They should have said he looks super scary, like he intended to harm people. No doubt about it. You don't dress like that when it's not Halloween if you're not intending to harm somebody. I mean,
yeah.
Look, they came with intentions.
Yeah, they came with intention,
and they were given directives. Yeah. So.
Yep.
All right, let me find an interesting opinion. All right, I can always count on Andy to give me a different opinion. So here we go. Why, Andy? Why do you think it's a distraction? Tell us why. I'd love to hear. Yes, arrested for praying. He was protesting.
Yeah, I disagree with that. I think he needs to be impeached. It doesn't have to be a long hearing like it was before. I mean, his actions, everybody's seen his action. So, I mean, at this point, you play the tape, you put on whatever evidence you need to put on, and you vote on it. That could all be done in one day. This don't have to be long and drawn out. But he needs to be held accountable. And that second guilty verdict in the House should bar him from ever holding federal office. He shouldn't have his name on any federal buildings. He shouldn't even have his name on a park. He needs to live in infamy.
There you have it. So Andy says, I hear you, Andy. Andy says she wants us to get on Clubhouse. It's coming, Andy. It's coming. So here we go. Last one for now. We'll be back. Keep them coming. We're going to have them going in all day. We're less than 2 weeks in. Let's secure ourselves and ride it out. The hearing would be too long. We need to address the vaccine. That's why she said why. All right.
I agree to disagree.
Yep.
Vaccine is not going to be properly addressed until Joe Biden and Kamala Harris are in office. Joe Biden has already spoken on it today, and he says that's the business of the House and the Senate. Congress can do their work while we do ours.
Yeah. And so, and I hear you, Angela, with this one, but I disagree because despite the rhetoric that 75 million people think differently, more than 75 million people think otherwise. So he has a country. I think he definitely has a country. It's just a divided country, yes, but he has a country. So speaking of President-elect, people often want to know what did he have to say about this, because I'm sure he watched it just like we did. So here's what he had to say. No one can tell me, and I quote, no one can tell me that if it had been a group of Black Lives Matter protesters yesterday, that they wouldn't have been treated very differently than the mob that stormed the Capitol. We all know that's true, and it's unacceptable. I will say this. That sounds like something I would say. We all know it's true. That line right there, and he wasn't talking to Black America either. We all know it's true. I hear you. it wasn't talking to us. We've been living it, so we all have known it's true.
Yes, and for that reason, he should be impeached because he set all of this in motion, and he withheld the safeguards necessary to protect those people trying to do their job.
No doubt. Well, I mean, look, anytime you have a person in power that turns on their second in charge, their vice, because that's essentially what happened. I mean, there's a reason Twitter suspended his account, but he literally said the vice president has betrayed us.
Right.
They were targeting him. You sent a incited mob toward the direction of your VP without making sure he had all the protocols in place to protect. That's crazy. I never thought I would say that in this lifetime.
Yeah, you don't get to walk away from that.
No, that's just
the easy thing to do would be to say, let him off the hook. It's only 2 weeks to go. No, because if you let him off the hook, he's gonna continue.
Yeah. Well, he's already said that. He said that very much today in a tweet today. My voice will be with you long beyond the presidency, and we will. So look, he has to be, because it has to be stopped.
Yeah.
So let me just get a couple of these other comments that are coming in, and yeah, I knew it would be hot today. Let me try to get as many as I can. QAnon, how dangerous could this organization get over time?
So that's a great question, Sarita. QAnon. Let's talk about QAnon. QAnon has a brilliant algorithm that they used on YouTube to find disaffected people through music, of all things. They tapped into the music that people were looking for on YouTube, and that's how they recruited them. They did soft sell recruiting until they built up huge numbers of people who were disaffected. QAnon is very similar to what's the name of the group that had the yellow flag, don't tread on me? I just had a brain.
The yellow flag on what?
The yellow flag that said don't tread on me. They had that whole group that got elected several years ago.
Yeah, I know you're talking about.
Like the next iteration of that group. I'll think of it in a minute. But they are anti-government. They have some very, very crazy beliefs that Democrats are pedophiles and that they eat kids and
right,
just all out foolishness. But what was created by Donald Trump is he saw this as a way to sow chaos and get money. Now he should be a fan of Biggie Smalls because he about to get money.
Oh yeah. Look, the fundraising strategy was brilliant. I mean, we diagnosed that a few weeks ago. I mean, you got to give $5,000 plus one for 20 of it to go towards legal fund. I mean, come on.
Yeah, so they will be a problem because they're getting elected, and their values are very, very. I wouldn't even call them far right. I just call them. Yeah. So let me finish this, and then I'll talk about AntiFa. Whereas QAnon is actual people, AntiFa, meaning anti-fascist. That's what it stands for. It's anti-fascist. Is a paper construct. is people who are against fascism. It's something that was made that sounds good, that makes it sound like there's a group of people out there that make up AntiFa or whatever you want to call it, but it stands for anti-fascist. There is no group that is under that banner. It is what it says it is, anti-fascist, meaning that you don't believe in fascist behavior. But leave it to the Republican spin cycle to make that into something that it's not. So that is the explanation. One is real. QAnon is real. You can actually see the QAnon people walking through and they're bought merchandise. You can see the Trump people walking through and they're bought merchandise, and they're one and the same usually. And while on the other hand, Antifa sounds very scary, and it gives them a boogeyman, a straw man to point at when Black Lives Matter or any other group that's against this foolishness that they've been talking about stands up. So don't buy into that. Yes. And it's an ideology.
Mm-hmm. Man, you guys came ready today. Charles, we talked about the 25th Amendment and the fact that we don't have time to do it. Can you just clear up what the 25th Amendment, for those that, because we do have, I just got hit with text messages on some of our listeners that just didn't want to put it out there, but just said, what is the 25th Amendment exactly, and what all does it entail?
Yeah, short version, the cabinet, meaning the people who make up the inner circle of government that were appointed and approved by Congress to assist the president in running the country, his cabinet, Secretary of Education, Commerce, Defense, Security, Attorney General, all of that, they would have to get together with the Vice President and invoke the 25th Amendment, which says that the president is not fit for office. And it's certain procedural things that have to happen. The reason I say it's not enough time is because while they're hemming and hawing about it, as Andrea pointed out, there's only 12 days left in this term. By the time they get all that ironed out, they won't have time to actually enact it. Whereas impeachment, on the other hand, articles of impeachment are written indictment that's put before the House of Representatives. It does not have to go to committee like it did before. It can go straight to the floor. There's enough evidence present that they can take it straight to the floor, vote on it, and send it over to the Senate. Now, it may stall in the Senate, but it needs to be done.
No doubt. No doubt. Charles, I tell you what, I think that the people that watch this show are the smartest people around, because no doubt they, if we could clone you guys, we'd be a much better world. But let me get some of this question. Here's a good one here too, Charles. So Angela said, let's talk about sympathizer too. What is the difference? What's the difference in a sympathizer and an actual follower?
That's terminology pointing at essentially the same thing. Yeah. Sympathizing may simply be that an individual is not actively out there, but they're aiding and abetting, which is probably what the officers at the Capitol, somebody was a sympathizer enough to say, come on in to the house. But the actual followers are the people that are, both of them should be arrested. How about that? In this instance, they both did enough havoc and caused enough damage, and people have died because of their action, that nobody should be let off the hook on this.
Yeah, well, there goes your answer to that, Angela. She said, can they go to jail too? And Charles just answered that one. Now, I'm going to give you a little different interpretation of it in just layman's terms. You probably are around more sympathizers every day in most of your life than you realize. Let me give you an example of that. So every day you're around people that they're not going to voice or take action and say something, but they thinking it, and they gonna do things behind the scenes to support that action that somebody else is willing to say. That's sympathizers. So they are just as culpable, and probably even more dangerous because they can fly under the camouflage of not really being noticed.
That's right.
And so I would even be willing to suspect that you got more than a few sympathizers that serve in the House and the Senate. That's just my thought on that. All right. So, Andy said, yeah, pretty much, Andy. You're right. But they do take actions, and so That's what makes them, they do take action. They just don't do it in plain sight. So,
and their action may come in the form of inaction.
Right.
Meaning that instead of forcefully blocking entrance to the Capitol, you just kind of turn your head and look the other way.
You know what? Here's a good example of it, Charles. And I learned this freshman year in college the hard way. Thank goodness nothing happened. But I just watch this kind of stuff happen all the time. So if you take somebody to the store,
yes,
you have no knowledge of what they're doing. Nothing. You go in the store, they're getting their groceries, you getting yours, and then you get back to wherever you reside, and this person shows that they got all this stuff that they didn't pay for. Now, they could, if they would have charged them and got them in trouble, they could have charged you with accessory. Am I correct, Charles?
Yeah, but that's slightly different. That's slightly different.
But it's close enough in real terms to me.
Yeah, it's close enough to what happened on Wednesday.
Yeah.
It's close enough to what happened on Wednesday. But technically, a sympathizer is someone who doesn't take action. They believe it in their hearts, and they're not really vocal about it.
But I'm gonna ask, really just asking a question for clarity though. But how is that different from the analogy? Because if you didn't take action, you didn't take action.
Yes, but in that example that you provided, you didn't even have knowledge of the situation.
Gotcha. So that was the missing piece. You would have had to have knowledge of the situation.
Yeah.
And then you go along with it. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh boy.
We were organized, but we had no intent to bust out any windows or to take anybody hostage. We were trying to prove a point. And that's a great example of using your First Amendment right to protest for good as opposed to an attempted coup where you're trying to take over the country. Because make no mistake, the MVPs of those Senate pages who grabbed those ballots for electoral college certification, that was one of the main goals they had, was to grab those and set them on fire.
Right.
Because in their mind, if they did that, that would invalidate the election, and you'd have to start over.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, you see some of the videos, and it's quite alarming that the officers were out there directing traffic, like, come on in. Instead of trying to keep people out, they like, come on in.
Yeah. I mean, no doubt. And Angela says somebody has zip ties. Yeah, Angela, we got a picture of it. The president is right here.
Yeah.
There's your zip tie. So, yep. And not one, many.
Mm-hmm.
Just in case you see, plenty of them. So Angela, I just put that up. So hopefully you saw that. So Charles, from a practitioner's standpoint,
mm-hmm.
I want you to answer this question in two ways: as a Black man, and then as a practitioner.
Mm-hmm.
So when this was unfolding Wednesday, because I was working, I wasn't even aware what was going on, and you called me. Told me to turn the TV on. So when you were watching this unfold, first as a practitioner, what went through your mind?
How many U.S. attorneys is it going to take to arrest all these people and hold them accountable? Because this is a 50-state problem. People came from all over the United States. And I mean, I've never seen anything quite like that. That was almost movie quality.
And then as a Black man, what were your thoughts?
But just hold on for a second. As a practitioner, I'm thinking, how stupid are you? You are on video. You have no defense. You are knowingly breaking the law. You had somebody walking around with a podium.
Yes. Oh, and that podium is found its way on eBay.
Yeah. I mean, you put up the picture of the guy whose dad is a judge in Brooklyn. He's a Supreme Court judge in New York. He going to jail. I mean, just you see him standing with the shield. He looks really crazy. And I hate to use the word crazy, but I mean, what were you thinking?
He's standing with the what? Oh.
He has a clear shield. And if you know anything about federal service, that's not his shield. So you just took government property.
His dad is a judge?
A Supreme Court judge in New York.
Wow. Wow.
Unreal. So as a practitioner,
wait a minute, not only that, and put on the police gear.
Well, now it was enough people in that crowd that had on police gear that I think they bought that stuff prior to.
Okay.
You can buy that stuff at some of those police supply stores. Gotcha. But that shield, you can't buy that shield. All right. Now, as a black man, I'm thinking, especially when you see the black officer who's retreating up the stairs, running away from the protesters, yes. I'm thinking in his mind, he's conflicted because if I shoot one of these people, they may hold me accountable for trying to protect my life. And if I hit one of them, they're going to attack me and possibly take my life.
Right. So
I'm thinking of his safety and everybody else's safety that's trapped in the chambers. I'm knowing that there's a whole tunnel system below, and I'm thinking about how bad this could be with bombs, snipers, all kind of stuff went through my head. But as a black man, I'm knowing like if a whole group of black people tried to advance on the Capitol like that, it probably wouldn't be anybody left to tell the story.
Oh man, you would have seen helicopters. They would have scrambled the Air Force. Look, there are no limits to what they would have done to protect. We've seen it.
Yes,
this is not hypothetical. We've seen it. It's been shown.
Think Ferguson. They had tanks in Ferguson.
They did. They had tanks in Minnesota.
Yes. Think Kenosha.
So what family, type in your thoughts in the comments so I can get them up here. What were your thoughts? And I know we have a lot of women in the audience today. What were your thoughts? Because we're giving it from a black male perspective, but what were your thoughts when you saw what was unfolding in front of your eyes on Wednesday?
Here's the question for our female audience. When you saw the officer escorting one of the rioters out, holding her hand, helping her down the stairs, would that have been afforded to a black female? Would that same help been afforded to them?
Let us know. Yeah, it was amazing to see. They're like, I think you're getting a resounding no on this one. But yeah, it was almost surreal that I mean, literally, when you said something a minute ago, you said this was movie quality, because it was really like, I was like, is this a prank? What am I? Is this really happening? Are they really escorting the people? Are they really letting people just walk through the gates? Are they really opening the gate? Really?
Think about this. A lot of people may know this. Some people may not. The Senate floor and the House of Representatives floor are so sacred that members of those bodies have to get special permission to bring their family members on the floor. And here these people are sitting at the desk, at the dais, desecrating sacred space.
Yeah. So, all right, let's see what we got here. Keep going, Charles. Working on something with the audience here.
Well, the long and short of it is this. You know how I feel about Langston Hughes. Beyond him being Omega, he was a brilliant thinker and writer. And he talks about two Americas. So does Baldwin. What do you think they would say if they saw this? Because this is the personification of two Americas in HD quality. Because even after they started getting the people out of the building, they didn't immediately arrest them. They walked them out to a space. Would that have been afforded to our brown and black brethren? Would that have been afforded to any nation of the First Nations, Sioux, Choctaw, Seminole? I think we all know the answer. So that ties directly back to your point about white privilege. There are two Americas. And until we fix that, we're going to have issues.
I mean, no doubt about it.
On the sunny side of the street, they should be held accountable, each and every one of them. I don't care how many days are left until he's out of office, because he has the ability to wreak havoc. And as somebody pointed out, he has the nuclear codes. So he needs to be removed. And those sitting United States senators who advocated that position, they need to be removed too. They all need to be held accountable because they led the charge, knowing in their hearts, knowing in their minds, knowing that they made a cold political calculus to back a lie, the big lie, that there was a faulty election. Because I want you to think about something as you're thinking about this. How big of a lie was it? If the election was rigged for Joe Biden, why wasn't it rigged for senators or House of Representatives members who ran against sitting senators? So they were on the same ballot. So it was good enough for the House of Representatives, the senators, and whoever else was on there, local government, but it wasn't good enough for the presidential. That's a big lie. And they took that lie and they turned it into violence. And they put a lot of people's lives at risk. So for that, they need to get the same sword that everybody else gets. The long arm of the law need to reach out and touch them.
I don't disagree, not one bit. Charles, hold on here. I'm gonna, every now and then, I will do something surprising, so hold tight. Let's see. Can you hear us?
Hey, everybody. Yes, I can. Okay.
All right.
I'm a mask on.
All right.
So,
what you got?
Thank you guys for welcoming me to the show. You know, it's just something because, you know, to talk about what's happening right now, we cannot forget how America was brought about. You know, we ended up taking this nation from somebody and then claiming it as our own, using the Bible now. We use the Bible, we call it a city upon a hill, and we went on to create these laws and things of that magnitude, and then we had to bring the people over to help the blacks, the Africans, right? And then here we are today. We are to me, seemingly some unwanted people. And on the 6th, we saw privilege. And a lot of people don't want to talk about the fact that, if, it had not been, if it had been Black people, it would have happened differently. And we know that it would have happened differently. We can't stress that enough. But like going back to what Doc said about Georgia, how Georgia has gone on to do some great things, and we don't want to take light from that. We want to make sure that we are walking in that victory. I was watching that race with my husband. We were in the mountains, and we were just, watching HGTV, and saw that commercial come on at the hotel, and Obama was in Warnock's commercial. And I told my husband, I said, baby, I don't know this Warnock guy, but this is going to be the race to watch. And it actually worked out like that. And indeed, the people showed up, they showed out, and they were able to help him to become the first Black senator to represent that state. And it's just a lot going on, but we don't want to forget the victories that we do have, and let's not forget the history. Let's not forget the victories or the history. And that's all I wanted to say.
All right.
Thank you, Angela.
Y'all can kick me.
So, passionate followings. And I think we brought up at the beginning of the show the importance. We celebrated Georgia. And I want us to all remember why Georgia was successful. Ron did a good job of talking about the hard work they've been doing for nearly a decade to put that in place. It didn't happen overnight. And what can we learn from that we can implement in our states so that we can do more of that? Because it doesn't just need to stop with one. And if you remember back, Charles, when you broke down Reconstruction, when you were doing the lesson on Reconstruction and you focused on South Carolina, and you talked about out of 121 legislatures in that state, they had a point where they had over 70 that were African-American men.
That's right.
So we have history has shown us how. So we do need to revisit our history. We need to understand, we need to put in the work, and there's stuff that all of us can do each and every day when the lights are not on to make sure that when the lights are on, we're in position to win.
Be nice to Stacey Abrams, and she might give you her master plan.
Absolutely. We need it because we need to implement it, not just in Georgia. We need to implement it in every single state.
Yeah, it's all in writing.
Every single state.
It's all in writing.
Look, we're at our time. Charles, I'm going to let you close us out today with the last words and final thoughts. All of you, we can't get to all the comments, but we'll probably do a follow-up on this and dive into this deeper as we watch what happens with impeachment, what happens with whatever goes on, behind this. So there will be plenty of opportunities, and we will be popping people in to kind of give us their thoughts and doing some different things just to make sure you have a voice. So Charles?
Sure. I believe it was someone mentioned distractions. Now is the time for law enforcement and the U.S. Attorney's offices across the United States to take up accountability measures for the actions that took place on Wednesday. And the same thing needs to happen for the president and those who backed him in elected office. It simply has gone too far for it to be treated as a distraction. But we know that we are capable of doing more than one thing at a time, because on Tuesday, we flipped the United States Senate. Full stop. That is monumental. And from the South, we have Reverend Raphael Warnock as the first Black senator out of Georgia. And you have John Ossoff as the Jewish senator from Georgia. I think that's the point of the arc of justice bending slow. So while you have these people being prosecuted for the acts that they participated in, celebrate them and then hold them accountable, because there is work to be done. Yeah, work on the climate, work on healthcare, work on stimulus, work on social justice issues. And I think the point in bringing up the difference in treatment between the races is this. When people tell you that Black lives don't matter, and that's a terrible slogan, this is the personification of why Black lives matter. If you afforded us the same treatment that you afforded them on Wednesday, then you would understand our plight. We wouldn't have to be so dodgy when we see police lights in our cars and we're not doing anything wrong. We wouldn't have to be feeling like we're being hunted down like Ahmaud Arbery just for jogging in the neighborhood, or sleeping in our beds like Breonna Taylor. So if you afforded us that same amount of latitude, so just let's figure it out. Let's de-escalate instead of shoot us and then figure it out. Then you would understand why we say Black Lives Matter. Colin Kaepernick was blacklisted from the NFL for highlighting the difference in treatment in social justice. Can't play the game that he loves and earn money because he highlighted just the issue that happened on Wednesday by kneeling. And he was turned into a pariah. Afford us the same, and we'll treat you the same. That's all I have.
There it is. And thank you, Angela, for the guests that came on. And listen, as we go through this year, as we post the notice of the episode of the show each week, periodically we will bring people on. So make sure you just hit us up on our page, like our page, hit us up on the page and let us know if you're interested in being on. And we just kind of pick people out at random that we'll throw on. So from time to time. So definitely, there's a lot of thoughts we want to get on this. This is something that we all watch and affected us all. So make sure you like our page, number one, and you hit us up once I post it. It's always the day of or the day before, and just let us know if you might be interested. And then we'll look at how many we got and what we got. And if we have time, we'll definitely get you on. So we look forward to that in 2021. We'll be doing a little bit more of that in 2021. So looking forward to hearing your perspectives. Until next Friday, or we may be back sooner if we get that impeachment call on Monday or Tuesday, as Charles predicts we will. So stay tuned. Watch the page. I got a feeling we'll be talking to you before Friday. Have a good one.
Leslie and I have known each other since early childhood. We grew up on the same country road in Mississippi.
I think why we're good for the community of Mississippi is because we're a product of this community. We are just two country guys, and we were embedded with what I call the diamonds of good character.
Come, join the family, and help us build the community.